thank you for all the panelists here tonight, stakeholders, and we are at the last meeting for the police reform mandate. I just want to make sure that everybody that has been involved to this point is thanked, and we really appreciate you putting the time in for the last, I think, 7 or 8 meetings, and with all the ideas that we're going to go through tonight, and some we've always gone through. And we will be voting tonight for a plan that is going to be given to the Southampton Village Board of Trustees. And that plan, once adopted, will head up to New York State to the governor's office. So without much further ado, I would just pass over to Trustee McLaughlin.
Thank you, Trustee Parrish. I too would like to thank all of you for your hard work and dedication to this committee, and for all of your inputs. It was a lot to do in a short amount of time, and you all rose to the challenge. And I thank you for all your input. And with that, I will let council start off with some where we are with the draft, and we can commence with the going through the points and voting on them. So, council.
All right. Good evening, everyone. As I circulated, when I received comments from Willa on Monday, I dropped her comments into the Dropbox. And so what we had in front of us was what I've been referring to as draft number 4, which was the draft plan that had been circulated amongst the committee members. And then Willa had submitted on Monday a document which is broken down into 7 categories, which has a number of specific proposals, but we'll look at them by category, I believe. And then Lisa, due to some personal issues I don't know how much she wants to go into it, but if you Lisa was unable to meet the Monday noon deadline, and she called me and obviously apologized. She had some issues going on. So Lisa today was able to forward to the committee through the email another document which she had listed, and she had about 13 categories that she wanted to address. A number of the issues between Lisa and Willa's proposals kind of overlap a little bit, which is good. That means they were all thinking about the same things. I just want to make sure from the committee, did I miss any? Those are the only 2 submissions I got. One from Willa and one from Lisa. Did I miss anybody else's submission? I didn't see anything in the Dropbox, and I didn't see any other emails. So if somebody did submit something and I didn't just refer to it, if you can please wave, jump up, or yell, whatever you want to do. No? Seeing none? Okay. So I think Trustee Parrish and Trustee McLaughlin, what we spoke about at the last meeting, somebody has suggested that we're not necessarily going to debate each and every item. We're going to take a vote. We're going to go down the suggestions put forth by individual committee members, and we'll take a vote. And if the vote is yes, it goes into the plan. If it's not, it doesn't go into the plan. Is that the procedure that you want to follow?
Yes.
Yes. I believe that the stakeholders are all aware of that, because that's what we agreed on last week.
So there is no debate there. We're just doing a up and down vote on each recommendation and going from there.
Okay. So, all right, fine. So I think what we have is we have 14 members here. We need 11 yeses. Oh, Willa has a question or a comment or a hand up.
Oh yeah, well, you're getting into the area that I was going to ask about, but I thought it was a majority vote, so just a simple majority. And then the other question is, who is able to vote?
Well, the answer is it's a majority of the full committee would be something that's needed in order to move forward and have an affirmative action.
Yeah, then we
So-
need to have the full committee here, so we need to postpone it. And then also, you know, the question of, you have to be a stakeholder in order to vote, except for the people who are recusing themselves. And I guess, Ken, you're not voting, but the police department, I assume, has one vote as the police department.
Well, no, it's anybody who's a stakeholder, and elected officials are appropriate to be stakeholders. The
They
chief of police-
recuse themselves, though.
Yeah,
Because
so
they're voting on the final proposal, so they recuse themselves.
that's right. And so but they're still a member of the voting committee.
Well, then what you've come up with is completely random as to voting on it, and it can't go forward, in my view, like that, because it's utterly random. And the police department needs to have one vote as the police department, not several people who work with the police department. Like, I
No,
could even see an argument where where Michael Hortzman is, representing the rank and file of the police department, but not two employees, and the chief. That doesn't make any sense.
well, that's completely inconsistent with the governor's executive order, but I appreciate your comments.
Yeah, it's actually not in the governor's executive order.
I disagree. In fact, they encourage, one of the categories they encourage is, I believe, ranking members of the police department, as well as the unions.
Yeah, but we should have one union vote and one police department vote. Not, if I have several employees or I want to have my spouse vote along with me, that doesn't make sense to me.
There's only one member from the police department, that's the chief, and then there's one member from the PBA, and that's Mr. Horton.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that makes sense. That's fine. But I thought there were additional people who were voting.
No, there's additional. If we went through the list of who's on the committee, the individuals that you see on the screen, Suzanne, her too, she's just here in case for some reason the chief wasn't able to log on. But she's not a stakeholder on this committee, but she's observing. And was there anybody else from the police department?
Ken,
You know,
No,
for-
that was it.
I
Yeah,
just
I
wanted
mean-
to jump in here real quick and just let me know if I need to jump out, if this is now a public meeting. If so, I can recuse myself, or one of our trustees can recuse themselves. But again, I just want to say that this process should be a collaborative one. It should be one where everyone is working together, and what is put forth to our board to vote on shouldn't come down to a matter of who is a voting member, who's not a voting member. We need to kind of get the ideas out and discuss them and see where we stand. The entire process, which everyone has worked very hard on, shouldn't come down to if someone opts to abstain from their vote. And it also shouldn't come down to, the chief's vote versus a stakeholder's vote. This is not a he said, she said. It's not a us versus them. This is a collaborative process, and everyone really needs to work together on this. So I just wanted to remind everybody what the point of this exercise with. It's to build community trust. It's to build relationships. It's to increase communication. So I think before we have a disagreement over who's voting and that's not voting, I think it'd be nice to kind of run through this. And again, I don't think it should be a tally. It should be, how do we all feel about this? And, again, it shouldn't come down to the chief of police being the deciding vote, or a trustee who decides to abstain being the deciding abstention. That's not the purpose of this. And so I think it's just best to kind of run through the list. Let's all work together. If something works, that's great. If something doesn't work, we should hear why it might not work. But I think maybe we should move forward. And then if that makes sense, or if that might help, but I don't know if anyone has any comments on
Mayor
that.
Warren, if that's accurate, and that's Father Mike, then I think really one of the things that needs to be understood is that the vote per se tonight, if you want to call it that or not, is really just an indicator to the trustees of support for or against different recommendations. So, it comes to you and it says, and of the stakeholders present at the final meeting, 7 supported this, 5 didn't, or something like that. But that ultimately, if I understand the workflow here, the recommendations of the stakeholders committee comes to the village and to its trustees to be finalized as a report in answer to the governor. Is that right?
That's correct, Father Mike.
Okay,
Yes.
so if that's correct, the other thing I would like to say, Mark, is that I feel that everyone who's been a stakeholder and been in the process should then participate. And I don't think there's really a need for anyone who's been part of the process and on this side of the meeting table, as opposed to the public attendees, Joe and Mark and anyone else. I don't see the need for anyone to recuse themselves. You've done the work, and if it's collaborative, then we should know what you think about the product of the work.
So what I stated earlier was that, and I agree with what you're saying, I understand what you're saying, is that voting on it from a trustee point of view is I was electing to do that. So do we need, Ken, I'll ask this to you, do we need to have this majority vote, or can just everybody say, yes, we'd like to have that, and that can move forward to the board? Because it sounds like because we have a
Listen,
discrepancy
this-
in the amount of people that started versus where they are tonight, that what you would call majority would not be met. However, based on last meeting, we had a pretty good consensus of the draft number 3, Willa's points, and Lisa adding on. So I think the thing in question is what I'm understanding is Lisa's recommendations are new. So Lisa, do you want to go through them? And if everybody that is on this meeting tonight accepts what we have come up before, then I think we're focusing more on Lisa's recommendations and how the board feels about, the stakeholders feel about that. And like Ken said earlier, a lot of them are overlapping already. Like the body cams is one that is in Willa's, and I believe it's in our draft 2 originally. So those right there are the same. So did everybody see Lisa's today to this point?
Yes.
So everybody did get a chance to go over Lisa's. And so Lisa, do you want to take
Oop, you muted.
do you want to take us through those? Or I think the question is everybody comfortable going ahead and saying, hey, look, these things that we have right in front of us, we know the previous, I believe, 6 from the draft plan, 3, 7, I believe is what Willa recommended before. So that's 13. And now I believe, Lisa, you have 13. Is that correct?
Yeah, but some of them overlap with things
Okay.
we have. I've just maybe added a thought or a component to it, but some of them are the same.
Okay. So is there anything that you feel that's not overlapping that you and the rest of the stakeholders said, okay, look, out of those 13, I think that we have 4 or 5, I'm just using an example of numbers, that can go on this and that we can all agree that that is the case. Ken, how does that work with what you were talking about before with voting? I mean, is it really necessarily a vote, or is it just hey, we all agree that these are things we'd like to see presented to the Board of Trustees?
Again, this is not a procedure that I set up. It was another committee member who made the recommendation that we do a roll call vote on each individual action item plan. So this was not my design. So again, it's not my committee. It's every stakeholders committee. So however you want to go forward. One of the concerns that I've had in other municipalities is that people, members of the committee wouldn't want to sign off on something if it didn't include every one of their proposals. Then I've had situations where committee members have said, we need to vote on individual items. You saw what happened in Nassau County. Nassau County, a number of committee members resigned because the initial draft plan, they had no input on, or they felt they had no input on. I wasn't on that committee, so I only know what I read in Newsday. So I thought the recommendation from one of the committee members was to, let's do a roll call vote on each numbered item so that what gets forwarded to the mayor and the board of trustees had been approved by a majority of this voting committee. If that's not what you want to do, if you want to simply forward to the mayor and the board of trustees, here are all of the individual recommendations that were discussed and brought up by each individual member of the committee, you can do that. And then what's happening is then you would be putting in front of the mayor and the trustees, 43, whatever the number is, I didn't count them up, but 43 individual recommendations, which, as we discussed, have some overlap, and then letting them decide which ones to adopt or not adopt. So that's whatever procedure you want to follow. Again, I was only working off of a recommendation of what one of the committee members made at the last meeting, and it sounded like it was a consensus. But if that's not what you want to do, that's fine as well.
Willa Bernstein has her hand up.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just gonna say of the, what I did on the last proposal I sent was break the recommendations down into, 29 different recommendations. So the headline topics, I broke it down. So those are not the recommendations, it's the 29 points.
And Michael Horstman has his hand up.
Yes, thank you, Kat. I thought we discussed last meeting, again, on live TV that, as Mr. Gray said, a committee member did mention a roll call vote. This was going to be a 10 to 15-minute meeting. That's why we did it on a Friday evening at 5 p.m. We spoke about last meeting who can vote, who can't vote, who's the stakeholder, who's not. And I don't understand why last minute this is all of a sudden changing into a debate style atmosphere to go over all this stuff again. I thought, last meeting, this is what we discussed. Everyone was in agreement. I'm not sure why this changed.
Lisa?
Mike, I had the opposite thing walking away from that meeting. I thought that we were going to compile all our ideas together, discuss them, and vote on them up and down. Now, I would say that there needs to be a fair process in that. But that was my takeaway. My takeaway was that this was not just yes, no, 15-minute. Because even when I've talked to other people on here right now, the expectation was that this was going to be a longer meeting.
Willa?
Yeah, the last thing I raised at the last meeting was that we needed to discuss who was going to be voting, who was a stakeholder, who was recusing themselves, and whether it was a simple majority. So the rules that were just laid out, by Ken are not, in my mind, a fair or representative vote. Especially if you're saying, all the stakeholders who may not have known about this meeting or the change time, or were not on the call last time and we didn't follow up with them, are not here. So obviously it doesn't make a vote, a fair democratic vote. When you've come up with rules that are just, clearly not representative of the committee views, and that's not democratic. So I
Okay,
personally
Willa,
can't sign on to that and don't want to participate in a vote that's, conducted in that way that was just laid out. I agree it should be collaborative, but, then people on this committee who have worked, hours and hours on this should be able to submit ideas and have that considered by the elected officials, and not have that short circuited. So I just, I don't think that like, if anyone suggested that we do it, it's not a vote of the nature that you're describing. especially with so many people not here today. So, either we have to postpone it and figure out in a meeting offline what a fair process is, or put everything in there and just, let the elected officials decide, in my view.
Reverend Butler?
Yes, it was to my understanding also that this meeting would be a short meeting because we would just be voting on what we've already discussed. I really think that we should just take a look at those proposals that are overlapping and then vote on it all together to present to the trustees and the mayor, because we've already discussed it. And those who are not here that are stakeholders, I'm sorry, they should be here. And we just have to move on because we don't have time to keep postponing and moving and waiting another date. And many stakeholders, I don't even know who they are because they haven't been here since I've been here. So, I think that's unfair for the rest of us who've been here, that they count as towards the percentage of the votes. I don't believe in that. I think we need to just come together. If there's overlaps, let's take care of the overlaps and vote on the whole thing to move forward. And that will cover what Ms. Willa Bernstein is saying as well, that all of our opinions are in there, and then the trustees and the mayor will decide what goes to the governor.
Ken Gray?
Yeah, I need to address the comments about how I have just announced random rules on how this should go forward. These are not random rules. This is a New York State law, general municipal law, public officers law, and it's consistent with Robert's Rules of Order. When you have a municipal board and this committee by extension as being formed by the mayor and the board of trustees, they have to follow those New York State law. And if you have for instance, if you have a board of trustees that has 5 voting members, in order to have any positive action, you must have a majority of the full voting board. So if you have a board meeting and 3 people show up and 2 of the trustees are not present, you have a quorum, you can move forward and you can take action. But any action item must then get 3 votes, because 3 is a majority of a board of 5. If it's voted on 2-1, that proposition fails. So what I was laying out was not a random idea of how I think this committee should move forward. It's not my opinion, it's state law. And it's also consistent with Robert's Rules of Orders. Again, I was only working off of committee members' recommendation last meeting, which I think was Willa Bernstein's recommendation. So if you want to change the rules, then again, this is the committee. That's fine. I'm not imposing myself. I'm not setting rules. I'm simply identifying what I believe to be the law. Thank you.
Okay, Joe?
I just want to say, just for clarity, that that the board has to vote. That Trustee Parrish and I had the vote on Tuesday, so there is no more time, unfortunately, for us to meet again to discuss this. So this is the last time we can meet to vote. So if we're going to vote, we should vote, and if not, I do understand Willa's point of view and everyone wanting to have a say, and I sympathize with that. However, this has to be on the dais on Tuesday to vote. So we're down to the wire here, folks. So we have to take action tonight or not, or not.
Willa? You're muted, ma'am.
Yeah, Robert's Rules of Order and also municipal law don't apply to this situation. It's a situation where, it has to do with a special order of the governor to convene stakeholders to come up with ideas because of a national movement. And it does, those rules don't apply. It is random. You can try to apply whatever rules you want, but it should be a consensus of, a fair vote. And when, a quarter of the panel is not here, and then, and then elected officials say they want to recuse themselves, and you're saying they shouldn't recuse themselves, they need to be counted. None of this is making a lot of sense to me. So it makes me personally feel like, you know, that it's been a waste of time up until this point. So, you know, I disagree with you, Ken, and I do think it's random. And that's,
Lisa?
you know, my opinion as an attorney.
Lisa?
Yeah, I'm just gonna put this out here for everybody, okay? I've been busting my rear end on police reform since August. It is the village that started this process extremely late, okay? Trustee McLaughlin, I understand it's either we do something tonight or we don't. But then if the people who have been working the hardest on this, which is quite a few people on this call, I mean, like, we have to have, to say that it's the whole committee and people are recusing themselves and this one's not voting and then still counting that towards the numbers is ludicrous. And so I don't know what to even do right now. I'm beyond frustrated. Do we just go through these proposals and see what maybe there's all consensus on? Do we not vote at all? Do we just hand it to you guys? Because I'm going to tell you, if you don't get this done today, you guys aren't getting your funding. I mean, it's as simple as that. And if it's not done the right way, which Ken, you pointed out in Nassau County, no, they resigned before that proposal even got there because they felt their input wasn't being taken seriously. So that's why people resigned in Nassau County. And now look at where the county is now. And I can tell you that Suffolk's right behind them. So I don't know, like, I don't know where you guys want to go with this at this point. I really don't. I know that I had a flood in my apartment last week. I still met with people. I still talked with people. I still wrote a 4-page list of recommendations that I thought were pretty, like, fair to everyone. I think there's things in there that can be discussed and flushed out. But I mean, if you move forward tonight without anything, I guarantee you, I promise you, I love all of you, but I'm writing a letter to the governor because that means you didn't get community input. And that's unfair. It's unfair for the people who have been busting our rear ends, trying to do this, volunteering our time. So again, if you're not going to take this seriously, please do not waste my time.
Michael Horstman?
Thank you, Kat. You know, I just want to add that you know, during this committee, we have added several meetings that were not initially in the plan. We did 2 meetings back to back. It's been very difficult for me to make these meetings. We also altered certain days when certain committee members couldn't participate on those dates. We have done a lot to make this fair for everybody to have plenty of meetings. We all discussed last week that this was the plan. We were going to be saying yes or no going down the line, and then it would be brought to the trustees, I believe, on the 23rd. Kat, I apologize to put you on the spot. I don't know if it's possible.
Okay.
Are you able to play a clip towards the end of the meeting when we all discussed and agreed to this?
I can't present it on the fly like that. If I was ready for it, I could have. I apologize.
No worries at all. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I didn't
Okay.
realize this meeting was going to be going in this direction and
Right.
last minute changes. Do we have minutes from that meeting towards the end?
We don't have a recording secretary taking notes on this. However, the Zoom that I have it recorded on does have a printed sheet that I can get a report from. Once again, on the fly, can't do it.
Okay, thank you. I apologize again to put you on the spot.
Okay.
But, you know, again, everyone, we have done the best to accommodate everyone. You know, this has been difficult for me. Again, two meetings in a row. We've gone back to back. Chief Cummings is on vacation, you know, made an effort to be here. You know, I have 3 kids and a pregnant wife. You know, it's very difficult. And I've made the adjustments that I could to the best for this the committee. Thank you.
Welcome. Joe?
Yes, I just want to clarify, my only reason for abstaining from this vote It's not because I want to pass the buck to the rest of you, but to say that I am a trustee, that I also serve as the trustee oversight to the police. So I feel for me to think about this evening, even though I am legally able to do so, would be not exactly fair because I have to vote on this on Tuesday. So that's why Trustee Parrish and I are here to listen to all of you. And I think we have done that to the best of our ability in our short time. So again, I would really like to see all this go through the recommendations, vote on them. If we want to condense on them, as Reverend Butler said, let's do that. But I think, but again, my reason for recusal is not to pass the buck. It's to maintain my neutrality as a duly elected official for the village. That's my reasoning. So.
Joe, thank you. I just want to say, I think we're all here to do what we're supposed to do. I think we're going in a direction that just is not going to, it's only going to keep delaying what we could be getting done right now. And again, like I stated earlier, I believe up until right before this meeting started, we felt all good about the recommendations that was in the draft and then what Willa had presented too. Now with today's being Lisa's, I believe, Lisa, probably the best thing to start is to start going over your recommendations and saying, okay, look, this is similar with what we have already. Then we can pare that down and then we can move on. I think we're sitting here and we're just going back and forth about this, that, and the other thing. We're not getting to what we need to be doing. So if everybody on this committee is willing to start going over what Lisa has put in, I think that's the best way to start moving.
Okay, well, we need to hear everybody. So Reverend, you're next.
Thank you. Thank you. My only concern, I agree with Mark 100% about moving forward, but I have a problem with those who are not here that count for the total stakeholders panel. Do we even have enough members today that will cover what Ken said would be 3/4, I think it is? Do we even have that amount of members here? Because let's not waste our time then. We don't even have the quorum now for the vote while we voting.
Well, you have a quorum. By my count, there are 20 members of the stakeholder committee. And with May signing on, May Zegarelli, we are now up to 15 being present.
Okay, now my question is with 20 and then with the recusals, do we meet that number where we can have a vote? And the people here that can vote will put us in a position where we move it to the trustees. That's just all I'm asking right now, because I agree with what Marcus says. I agree with him completely that when we look at Lisa's proposals and when we merge them with Willa's proposal, we should be able to move forward. We should be able to, because I don't think there's, from what I've seen, there's not much difference.
So
I just want to make sure we have enough voters.
Right. So Reverend Butler, so from what I see here, there are 3 people on the call who have announced that they're going to recuse. That would be Trustee McLaughlin, Trustee Parrish, and ADA Patricia Brosco. So we have 15 people on the call. 3 people would recuse themselves. We have 20 members on the committee. You need 11 votes. So it looks like you'll have 12 voting members and you need 11 votes for an affirmative action based on my calculations.
Okay, next up is Willa. And you're muted.
And yeah, in preparation for being on this panel, I just looked at what some other stakeholders groups around the state are doing. And, you know, what they did is they broke the order, the governor's order, into its various parts. And then they assigned different stakeholders to write pieces of a final report that were all merged and became the final presentation to the elected officials and then to the governor. So everybody had a voice in creating and writing the draft of the proposal, and then that went on. So if the holdup here is that I proposed a vote, which I very well may have, I withdraw that because I proposed that vote thinking that it would be something like a simple majority and that most of the stakeholders would be present and that the people who shouldn't be voting because it's a political conflict would recuse themselves as they have. But, you know, as I say, all of that's been overridden. So if the confusion is that I suggested that without knowing the details. And I specifically gave the caveat that I wanted to know at the beginning of this meeting how the vote was being conducted, whose vote was being counted, et cetera, because all the voices should be heard in terms of a final report. And I wouldn't have spent, hours and hours doing all the work to be here and to write proposals if I thought it would just be voted down by some, ludicrous process. I'm sorry to say, but that's my feeling about it. So I think the fairest thing to do is, the way every other committee who's been given this assignment has done it, which is various members assigned to write different parts of the proposal and then it goes forward. Because ab initio, when we walked into this, we said we're writing the proposal, and the police department said, we've already written the proposal and here it is. So, they had their input, other people on the panel should have their input and it should go forward, unless we want to completely revamp the voting and make sure, everyone is here to vote.
Okay, Chief.
I don't know if this is gonna, my suggestion on this is, since we're an hour in now, we haven't gotten anywhere. From my perspective, everything that's been submitted from everybody, as long as it's legal and as the police department, we can practically try to implement it, I don't have a problem. So can we just, maybe suggest that we move it all to the village board and let our attorneys look through it, and what we can do, we'll do it all if we can do it. And a lot of the stuff in Willa's proposal and Lisa's proposal, we're either doing already or we can easily do. Some of the stuff, the attorneys have said they don't think is possible for us to do. From my perspective, anything that's practical, this whole point of this, why I didn't argue with people, I just let them say what they wanted to say, is to take input, the police department to take input from all of you, and the village to take input from all of you. You gave us the input. I think if we can practically do things that you all suggested, we will. If it's legal to do the things you suggested, we will. Can we maybe just move it all forward and let the board sort it out? Take all the suggestions.
Michael Horstman.
Thank you, Kat. I just wanted to, reiterate, we knew who was recusing themselves last week, and we knew who was an eligible voter last week. So, that was discussed. This is not, something that is new. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I think I want to just get on in and go. So thank you for everybody's input. And I do believe that we have the opportunity right now for Lisa to read hers and then submit these. And then through, the process of the Board of Trustees and our council to go through all of them and see what is doable. And if the chief believes that, he, like he had said last meeting, and again, he had said, look, he doesn't have a problem with a lot of these things and they're doing them. And it sounds like the input that has been given is will go into the draft. So how does the committee feel about that?
Mark, I think I think between what you're saying, what the chief had said, and I think there's an awful lot of support for a lot of the things that people mention. It seems like the point now of difficulty is how do we get this from the work that we've done to the board, and there's only a couple of days to do that. I had suggested to Ken during the weekend, he wasn't sure if this was really possible or not, but what if we put out to each and every of the stakeholders a list physically of all these things, asking for a check of support for the ones that we feel are worthy and important, and take our own ownership for that, things I support, and then turn that over to the board. I think it's public. I think each person has commented then. It's transparent. We are on record for the things we've supported. And I just don't know if we can do anything any much better than that in the days that we have, the time we have before the trustees need to deal with this.
Ken Gray.
again, you know, we should do whatever the consensus of the committee is, but what I'm hearing, and it sounds like, I think Willis supports what I'm about to say. I don't want to speak for her, but please correct me if I'm wrong, is let's put before the mayor and the board of trustees every individual recommendation. And at this point, it's only 3 documents. It's draft number 4, it's Willa Bernstein's document and Lisa's document. Put them all together and say, this is the collaborative, collective recommendations from stakeholders. So this way, the board, the mayor and the board of trustees sees what everybody has recommended. And this way, we're not voting, 7-6, 5-3, whatever the numbers are. And they get the full sense of everybody's recommendations. So nobody feels that, oh, well, because one of the stakeholders was unable to appear tonight, that my recommendation got voted down because I didn't get the majority of the vote. So I think what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we should put all of the recommendations to say, this is collectively what this committee feels is important and needs to be addressed. And then let the mayor and the board of trustees do their job.
I'd support that.
Is that what I'm hearing? Again, I don't want to suggest we take a vote, but
Reverend Donald Butler.
I think Ken just put it all together for us. And that way no one's left out. So, and then the trustees will look at it and they will merge what needs to be merged and we can move forward because Lisa and Willa did a lot of work and I think it needs to be noticed and it to be looked at. And then the trustees and the mayor would have the option of voting on it or not. But I think we as a stakeholder should move forward with that. That's a great suggestion.
Joe?
Lisa, would you be willing to get to talk and see which ones, points you guys overlap on, so we don't have to, so we can kind of condense it, so it'd be easier for us trustees to go over it on Tuesday?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, you guys can reach out to me anytime. My only concern, and it could be a very far-fetched concern, is that y'all get this, you get 40 recommendations or 30 recommendations, and you guys decide to put 2 in the plan.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Why can't we just condense it now, or have you and Willow speak offline? You guys can condense your recommendations, so we don't have to, go over this ad nauseum. So
If Willa is willing to do that, I'm more than willing to work with Willa and get that over to you guys.
Father Patrick?
I certainly don't want to suggest that we reopen all this can of worms. The only thing I'm disappointed in is that I'm sorry that we're not actually able to make a consensus voice on additional proposals. It in some way, it seems to me as if we're going around this group, and I realize there are some that may not have been included because they didn't catch any of the emails or any of the other notices about the different time. But then what we do then is we don't have the opportunity to act as a stakeholder group and to make those votes to see what it is that we as the group want to put forward. Although I don't want to sound like I'm trying to be a barrier to anything, I think now that what will happen is the debate that we might be able to have might very well then become debate that will happen without the group's voice being heard inside the council meeting.
I just want to add, if everybody hasn't noticed, it's now 7 minutes beyond our normal time meeting. So if anybody misunderstood the time, they should be on by now. That's all I wanted to tell you. Willa, you're next. You're muted, ma'am.
Yeah, just going back to the idea that the assignment was to come up with proposals for reform, which is not really, up to debate. We were supposed to come up with proposals to reform things and change things. And most groups went about this by asking individual stakeholders to study individual aspects of what needs to be changed, not necessarily in this department, but in generally, in how criminal justice is conducted in concert with the public. So everybody was allowed to craft parts of the proposal, and it all went into the final stakeholders proposal. So I think just merging the three together, and that's the proposal, that goes on, and then the trustees and the mayor can look at that, but that is the work product of this group. And that seems fair to me, because the police department, had the first 6 months or whatever it was to craft what they wanted to do in response to it. And that went in carte blanche, and, we weren't asked to vote on it. It just, they drafted it, and I'm okay with that. That represents what they wanted to say. And then, I had 29 proposals that I came up with from the discussions that came out of the discussions here, and my own research and background and whatever. Lisa came up with hers. I don't think there's a lot of overlap. I looked at them this morning, other than we should have body cams, that was probably the one overlap. Not probably, that was the one thing that overlapped. So if we just put everything in there as the final product, I think, we save ourselves a lot of, more angst and time. And I would personally feel like at least I did what I was asked to do and supposed to do on this, and without having it, quashed before it gets to the next stage. So I would feel okay with that.
Lisa?
So I concur with everybody else. I think, to Father Patrick's point, if we could, I would feel comfortable if everybody could take a look at what I wrote and what Willa wrote. And if there's any questions, if we could maybe have not, huge debates or anything, but if there's any questions or additional information that be shared, whether it's in this meeting tonight or through email after. Just because I'm not a lawyer. I mean, so Willa's writing and my writing are very, very different. So like maybe there's something in mine that isn't legal, that I put in. So some of those things are good to have discussion on, but and I would like to hear, if there's anything we left out of these three things, if anybody wants to add on to it, I hope they do. But I'm with Willa. I mean, if we just want to submit all of this to the board, my only concern, again, is that you guys are voting on it. It's got to be written very quickly, and it's got to then get to Albany by April 1st. So that's my only concern. If we miss that, we lose funding, and then we're not going to get any of our reform, and the police are going to be hurting on their end, and the village is going to be hurting. So I don't know, I kind of carry a lot of this responsibility on my shoulders because I think about all of these things. So that's my only concern with it.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm confident this will get up to Albany in its time. I know Ken and I have spoken. I know Joe and I have spoken, and it will get up there. So it sounds like, and that we are starting to move in a much more productive direction, which is the reality. I'm looking at some of Lisa's points right now, and I also have over here, I have some of Willa's that originally. So there are some that are crossing, and not that they are always identical, but they do have a certain language that is very similar. And that's going to be up to the board and to the council to look through and get it to the point where the language is right to put into a final document. So where does the rest of this committee stand? Are they ready to go and say, we have a consensus that we would like to put these recommendations forward. Because that's what I think that Joe and I need to hear.
Willa,
I mean,
you're muted again.
The only thing that I would ask is that when you merge them, that you give a copy to the board so that we know what the merged document looks like. You know, that I just would like to see the merged document.
Gotcha.
You know, the board.
Ken,
should-
can that can happen, right? When things are put together?
It'll certainly be given to the Board of Trustees.
No, I mean to this group. So we just know it's the representative.
Oh, I'm sorry, you used the word board, and I
The
thought that was the
stakeholder.
Board of Trustees.
No,
You're
that's
talking about the
state-
committee?
Yeah, the committee, so that we can see the final product with the 29 proposals, Lisa's, however many proposals, how many proposals are there, and then the whatever document we had already.
Yeah, I'm sure that document will be circulated to this committee. But Trustee Parrish, I think the question is, and I think I heard the answer from a consensus without doing a vote, is that this committee would like to see all of the individual recommendations contained in the recommendation that goes to the mayor and board of trustees. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. That's what Joe.
right.
Yes, I mean, yes.
Okay, so without taking a formal vote, if anybody disagrees with that, that, you know, the ideas behind all of the recommendations will go into a document that gets presented to the mayor and board of trustees.
Well, I would like to add one point to that, to have, kind of, if you can go through it to eliminate any things that may be not applicable to the village in terms of any legal language. I think I leave that to you to filter out if there's anything that we couldn't adopt legally in the village.
Well, I quite honestly, I think that's something that I need to address at the mayor and board of trustees session. I've already given some legal advice that I've given, which I have consulted with the village's labor council and their former council. And I think I've been told that, well, even if we think it's inappropriate, we should move forward until we get sued. So I will address what I believe to be my legal opinion to the mayor and the board of trustees.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so where does that leave this meeting, Ken? I'm a little lost.
Well, I believe there's a consensus amongst the board to merge, for lack of a better
Committee.
word. Mark, I'm sorry, trustee Parrish?
The committee, the consensus among the stakeholder committee.
The consensus among the stakeholder committee is to merge the three documents and say, here are recommendations from members of the stakeholders committee. And we list them all out and we provide it to the mayor and the board of trustees. And they then will take appropriate action as they deem appropriate.
That's what I believe this stakeholders group is saying, and I am okay to move forward with that.
And I second
I
that.
agree.
And Willa has her hand up.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to say that, you know, Ken, that misrepresents, because I think you were referring to my comments. I don't think we should do whatever and be sued, but I think the mandate is reform and to come up with, you know, out of the ballpark ideas about what might be a challenge to something based on civil service law, which you brought up right at the beginning of this. You know, it seems to me that that's not appropriate, and it's not to do something that would get us sued. But I listened to the concerns with that and added to my proposals, you know, as long as it's within state and federal law, you know, we should go forward with all the proposals. But the mandate is you know, very clear, and that is the law as well, and very important. And that's why this panel was convened. So I just felt that it was inappropriate to raise, you know, before the fact, before knowing, you know, if things would be challenged or what the likelihood, or if you could do certain things. It was inappropriate to bring up all, you know, of these far-fetched legal concerns about it. Not that we should do things that are clearly illegal, but it would be illegal to ignore the mandate to engage in reforms that are very specific as to what needs to be changed and how that will be more fair to the public. So that was my point. So I think you misrepresented that point. I just wanted to say that. And I don't think that, you know, these things should be looked at and taken out before they, you know, and not be part of the proposal because they're unilaterally decided beforehand that it would be illegal when it's not that clear, you know. And as an attorney, you know, it's, you don't know when you're in the reform area, you need to look at reforming law and applying it, you know, in a new way to things that, you know, you're actually by law mandated to do. So that's how I look at it. So I don't think, if the idea is to go through these things and, you know, decide that most of them are going to be illegal, which I don't think that they are, I think you can do the vast majority of the things that have been proposed. So I don't think that would be fair. The only thing I would feel comfortable with is all the proposals go into the report, and that is the report of the stakeholders. And I feel like that is how the initial report by the police department was treated. Like, it's all going to be legal and it's all going to go in there. And nobody was given a chance to contest any of the statements or disagree or whatever. So everybody on the panel should be treated the same way in that respect.
Lisa, you're next.
So carte blanche as the report.
Yeah, just one other concern would be if there's something in the proposals that somebody's strongly opposed to, I think that should be a discussion with the committee. But I also just wanted to point out that in my recommendations, there's a part there that says CCRB or the below. And the reason why I didn't write out a whole CCRB type thing is because Willa had it covered in hers. So I just want to point that out as far as the recommendations go, where I thought, you know, where Willa had covered a lot of stuff, I tried not to duplicate. So I don't want it to seem like I'm not supporting what Willa wrote. There's a lot of stuff in Willa's that I 100%, I just didn't want to duplicate everything for everybody.
Joe?
Yes, I would be okay with that, Willa. I think we should just take all the recommendations and adopt them, and then whatever needs to be amended after April 1st, or whatever we need to reform afterwards, I certainly would consult with council on that. But I believe you're right, we should just adopt all the recommendations as is, and then see what happens after once they're adopted. So
Welcome back, Sandra.
Okay, so Sandra, since you just joined back in, I hope everything's okay. I'm glad that you're back. That means that's a good thing, I believe. We are at this point now where we have gotten a good feeling from the committee of stakeholders to take all the input that was given over the last, in the duration of the stakeholder group, one being a draft plan that was in the draft plan number 4, I believe, is what we spoke about extensively last week, as well as Willa's input, her I believe she said 29 points, which were, I believe, 7 categories with bullets underneath. And finally, Lisa's input that was brought in today, and to put them together, and that will be presented to the Board of Trustees.
Okay.
Does that sound like something you would support?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So I believe we are at this point now that we didn't think we would be at 25 minutes ago. So I want to thank everybody for being able to work around some of the challenges in the beginning and now getting to a point where everybody, I believe, here feels pretty good that their voices have been heard and their intentions for being on this committee are going to be represented. Does everybody feel that way? You can just say yes, no, whatever. I can't see everybody on the screen because I have a couple other documents that I've been looking at. So
I'm watching everybody on the screen, Mark. And if anybody could just raise your hand or something if you disagree. If you disagree.
What was the question again?
If everybody feels like their voice is being heard by presenting the entire document to the board. Does anybody
Everybody feels
disagree?
that they have collaborated amongst these different discussions to a point where they are like, hey.
We have Michael Horseman's hand up. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I guess to Trustee Parish, again, I'm just a little disappointed how from last meeting, we all agreed on what the procedure was going to be. And then again, last minute, it changed. I mean, I'm reading something, I'm not sure on whose report of limiting officers to be unarmed. I mean, does everyone remember the Newtown school shooting? I just don't understand some of these things. I really don't. To put our children and teachers in jeopardy is truly disturbing to me.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I believe
Willie Jenkins.
I mean, like, let's guys, I haven't been for a few meetings. I apologize. I had things going on, but it's not that difficult. And we keep going back over stuff. And the gentleman that I don't mean to, like, okay, let's say there's a silly proposal in one of the things. The board is going to vote on it. They're not going to vote to take the guns away from the police. And so let's not with any silliness. Let's just be realistic here. Put all the proposals forward. It doesn't matter what it is. If it doesn't say it doesn't matter if somebody says makes the cops wear clown hats. Put it in as a thing. It's going to get passed by the board of trustees that everybody's elected. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it is, and that's the process. If something needs to get amended afterward, as long as the recommendations get put forward and the proper time, that's what needs to get done. Like, it's not really nothing to discuss or talk about. Just put it forward. It eliminates the vote. Everybody gets their ideas across. It doesn't matter what that idea is. It doesn't matter. There's silly laws that get put to Senate every day. Silly, nonsensical laws. They vote on it. They vote it down if it's stupid, and it goes on. That's what's happening. Let's just move forward because we're going in circles, and it's not that serious. It's that serious. It's not that difficult. Like the Chief Cummins, that was a great idea. Mark, great idea. Lisa, we all agreed on it. That's it. There's nothing else to keep going back over and forward about. It makes sense. Put all the proposals, because that's what was going to happen anyway. If you really think about it, that's all that was going to happen anyway. Whether we voted on it or they voted on it, it was going to get to them anyway, and they were going to shut it down or they were going to push it through. That's all that needs to happen. So we just push it through. It's not rocket science.
Thanks, Willie. Anybody else? Okay, Mark.
Okay, so I believe that the recommendations that the committee has is going to go to the Board of Trustees, who will then vote on the plan that will be directed to the governor of New York State.
I second that. Well,
Okay, so Ken, do you have anything to add?
No, sir. Thank you very much.
So I believe that everybody here, we are wrapping this up. And I thank you again for being involved in the stakeholder group. And I know that I've learned quite a bit about all the things that go involved into getting something done on a level where the community participates. And I did learn a lot on quite a few different levels. And I'm glad I'm able to walk away with some of the things that were brought up. And we as elected officials will work hard to make sure we try and get things right. And then that now falls on our shoulders. So thank you to everybody. It's been fun at times. It's been challenging at times, but I believe we've made some good headway, and thank you all. Joe?
Thanks, everybody.
I just want to echo trustee Parrish's points, and I want to just say thank you all again, for being in office only in 6 months. It's been a pleasure working with all of you and hearing all your points of view. And as I said, the last meeting, this meeting, again, it was a challenge, but we got through it. And I just wanted to thank you all again. Thank you.
So do we make a motion to close the meeting? Yes?
Yeah, but that would require a vote, so
Oh, no.
Okay, we are closing.
why don't
the
we just
meeting.
close the meeting?
Thank you.
Do we have, do we have another meeting?
There is
That-
no further meeting scheduled.
No,
Okay. All right.
thank you,
Email-
everybody.
Email somebody if
Yeah.
you have any questions. Thank you.
Take care.
Good night.
Everyone.
Have a good night.